Episode 79, Forged in Deceit. The Mystery Secret Searchers remember the mysterious map that we found, and we decide, because Eliza's diary mentions her going and hiring a guide to bring her to the caves in America, where she's hoping to find Henry. So she travels there by stagecoach and steamer and rail line. We traveled to this area in the United States as well, Upper New York State, where we found a raging river flowing through deep-cut caverns and canyons. This was quite unexpected for us to find in Upper New York State, but Ausable Chasm is a very well-known landmark there. You have to climb very high above the river. They have walking paths for you. We decided that we needed a guide as well. We were looking for this cave where Henry might have been after the war in the 1800s. So we hired the guide. He took us along the river, taking us farther and farther in through the caverns. It was a fantastic place to visit, a beautiful place to go. They have nice walkways for most of the trail. You get to a certain point, though, where you have to leave the paths and leave the trails and get into a raft and go rafting down the river. The river is fairly calm. Again, it's a beautiful sight to raft down the river. But as you go farther and deeper down the chasm, you end up getting to an area where there are rapids. And we had to spend some time shooting the rapids to get further down to the area where the caves were. And this is what we were looking for. So this is our little adventure, shooting the rapids at Ausable Canyon. That was certainly a fun and exciting adventure down the rapids. But on the other side of the rapids, we're able to get closer to the areas where there are the caves. Our guide is leading us to an area where we're going to disembark from the raft. We're going to get off right near a fault line through the chasm here. When we disembark, we have to climb up some rocky stairs. A little bit difficult, but not too hard to do. The canyon surrounds us on both sides. It's quite a narrow place. It's kind of intimidating. Very sheer rock looking down. But we decide to travel on, and we come to this opening where we can see in the distance a cave. There's a cave opening in the rock. Now we just have to make our way down to that location. It's a little bit tricky because there's big shards of rock scattered all over the place. And of course, there's still a little bit of the rivers flowing through this area. But with our guide's help, we're able to navigate our way down towards this cave. As we get closer to the cave, we see this sheer rock cut with the water flowing through it. This is why we had to leave the raft. We couldn't get through this section on the raft. And you can see it's quite a deep chasm into the ground. Well, this didn't stop us. We were this close to the cave. We had to get in there. We had to see if this was the cave that Eliza heard about in the diary. Is this the cave Henry spoke of? So we got closer. We could see that there were rock cuts. We would have to get down on our hands and knees to crawl through some of these openings. There were amazing rock cuts and caves, but we found it and we decided, well, we've got to go in. So we got our flashlights ready, and in we decided to go. And we didn't have to travel far inside the cave before we made a pretty significant discovery. In this particular cave, we came in, and in the darkness, in the dim lit darkness, we saw the remains of a skeleton, and beside the skeleton was an old musket. A musket from the 1800s, a musket used in the war. Was this the skeleton Henry was referring to? All that remains is a skeleton and a musket. Is this what Henry's people speak of? There's a sealed note. It has an H seal on it. When we found the skeleton, we found the musket, but we did not find any H sealed note. There was no parchment with H seal on it, so we're going to have to look for that. Eliza must have taken that from the cavern. Well, being the curious types that we are, we decided that we weren't going to touch the skeleton. We were going to let it rest in peace, but we were going to examine the musket. So we carefully removed the musket from the cave. We found an exit to the back of the cave, and we were able to find our way back out to the river. We crossed the river until we found an area that was a little bit safer, because there's still a lot of rapids here, very hard to get around. We found a nice safe area where we could place the musket down on a rock, and we had a quick look at it. And the musket was amazing. It was a musket from the 18th century. It was used by a lot of British soldiers. And it was a musket that was referred to as a brown bess. So it was a very common musket. And here it is. We've got it out on a rock. Just have a quick look at it. We'll take a closer look once we get back home. But you can see it's a wooden musket. It's got some metal parts to it. And one of the things that we found really interesting was on the piece that identified it was GR, George Royal, King George at the time in England. It was a brown bess musket. with bayonet. This was an exciting discovery. So we made our way home from Ausable Canyon with an incredible artifact that we think belonged to Henry.